How you doing? My name is Richard Finelli, and this message is for my family, or as we say in Italian, mi famiglia, for friends and acquaintances over the 63 years of my life, and for anybody else who cares to listen and watch, who is concerned about the direction that the United States of America is headed in. This message is about God and country. And let me state right up front that I am a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ is Savior and Lord. Don't misinterpret that. I'm not a voice of moral authority. I've made many mistakes in my past. It's likely that I'm going to make them in the future. I am a work in progress. But I did want to be right up front with you, because no matter what you believe, your time is just as valuable to you as mine is to me. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to tune this out. That being said, let me continue. Before I get into the nuts and bolts of my message about God and country, I'd like to give you a little background about myself and where I've been. So if you would just bear with me for about 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes. I was born in the Park Slope section of Brooklyn, New York. When I was my family moved to Ozone Park, Queens. All of my childhood memories emulate from that neighborhood. A great neighborhood, a fantastic neighborhood, a wonderful neighborhood to grow up in. In Ozone Park, I experienced all the joy of my successes in my youth, and all the agony, the pain, and frustrations of my many failures and defeats. In that neighborhood, I learned the value of hard work, self-reliance, discipline, and respect for authority. I learned those values in my home, the 2 schools I attended, Public School 63 and John Adams High School, and in my church, Nativity. As a side note, I might add that I got quite an education on the streets. My dad was a truck driving teamster, my mom a stay-at-home mom, and on the socioeconomic scale, it's fair to classify that neighborhood at that time as being at the lower end of the middle class. At times, finances got tight, but it never affected my growth, and it certainly never affected all the joy I experienced in my youth. After graduating from John Adams High School, I enlisted in the United States Air Force. I served 4 years in the Air Force. 18 months of those 4 years were spent overseas, mostly in the Philippines and in Vietnam. Those 18 months gave me a great appreciation, love, respect, and for my country. It's very sobering when you see how people live in distant lands and how they're forced to do with to do without so many of the basic necessities that we take for granted in our country. After being separated from the Air Force, I married and began to raise a family of my own. And now, after almost 40 years of marriage, my wife and I can look back, and for the most part, we can say we're pleased with where we have been. Sure, we've had our ups and our downs in our marriage, but hey, what marriage hasn't? We raised 2 great kids. They're married now, have families of their own, and they've given us 3 wonderful grandchildren. In 1979, when I was 30 years old, something happened in my life that changed me forever. And I'd like to share that with you. I was sitting in my living room in the wee small hours of the morning because I worked nights and got off work pretty late. And I began to take inventory of my life. I mean, here I was, 30 years old, in my prime. I had a great job in a defense plant on Long Island. I lived in a nice house on Long Island. Had a fairly late model car on the driveway. Some money in the bank. A fine young son. Another baby on the way. And a very supportive wife. The American dream, right? But I asked myself a question. Is this it? Is this all there is? Is this what life's all about? And I realized then that if I were fortunate enough to acquire a better job, start making more money, buy a bigger house, start driving a flashier car, sooner or later, the satisfaction of all of that would wear off, and I'd be in search of something else. So I had questions. Simple questions. Questions that I couldn't answer. Questions that the intelligentsia of the world could not answer. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? A few days later, I was once again sitting in my living room in the wee small hours of the morning, and I was watching a Christian broadcast on television. And the host suggested that Jesus might be the missing component in my life. And I just stared at the screen for a while and said, Jesus, the missing component? I says, hey, I'm Catholic. I know all about God. Well, the fact was that I didn't know all about God. I didn't know who He was. I had no relationship with Him to speak of. Oh, I believe He existed, all right, but I saw Him in the abstract. And though I was raised to believe in my church that Jesus Christ died for the sins of the world, right at that very moment, it became personal. He died for my sins. And up till then, I had been a part of the problem and not a part of the solution. And I wanted so much to rectify that. I guess you could say I was born again. Excuse me. And so I began reading and studying the Bible. I couldn't get enough of it. I began consuming books on many different subjects by Christian authors, types of governments, communist, socialist, capitalist, American history, world history, economics, finances, relationships, marriage, world history, American history, biographies of people in America, leaders in America, past and present. But it wasn't until I read a book by Dr. Francis Schaeffer titled A Christian Manifesto that I began to grasp why the battle rages in America and in all of humanity, for that matter. In his book, Dr. Schaeffer suggests that there are two worldviews, and they are in conflict with each other. One worldview says that we are created in the likeness and the image of God. And the other worldview says that we are simply random matter shaped by chance. And I agree with Dr. Schaefer. Now, depending upon what each person believes relative to those two worldviews is more or less going to determine how that person lives their life. Virtually all of the decisions they make in life are going to be predicated on their belief. Now, in the United States of America, we have a republic. And in our republic, we are given the opportunity to choose leaders to represent us. We send them to Washington. We send them to our state capitals. Isn't it incumbent upon us to know exactly what those leaders believe? Because after all, once they're sworn into office, they're going to create the laws that we have to live under. They're going to surround themselves with people who reflect their values. And they're going to pursue an agenda that reflects their values. We, as free American men and women, need to make sure that these officials reflect our values. Now, in November of 2012, we the people are going to go to the polls and we're going to select leaders. We're going to select 435 members of the House of Representatives. We're going to select 33 members of the United States Senate. We're going to select the President of the United States, governors, state senators, and state representatives all across this great land of ours. We need to know what they believe. In the case of the president we select and the governors we select, it's even more important because in addition to the duties that they are required to carry out, they also have the task of appointing judges. And given the fact that the judicial branch of government in America increasingly is having more on the everyday lives of American citizens, even more so than the legislative and executive branch, we certainly need to know what these governors and what our president believes. What do these people believe? Do they believe that we are created in the image and the likeness of God? That we are able to pursue our dreams and our ambitions according to the content of our character and our intellect? Are we capable of that? Or do they believe that a very powerful central in Washington, D.C. is necessary to plan our lives for us? Do we need the government to tell us what kind of health care we need? Do we need the government to tell us what kind of cars we can drive? What kind of energy we can use? What kind of businesses can be built? Where these businesses can be built? What kind of schools our children can go to? What we can eat? What we can drink? What kind of light bulbs we can buy? Dr. Francis Schaeffer had a word for that mindset. He called it and I completely agree. The Constitution of the United States of America gives us, as free men and women, the right to select these leaders and to send them into office. And so I want to offer you a challenge. Take the time to investigate these that are asking for your vote. Do some research. It's not hard. You can go online, Google their names, and find out virtually everything about them. What do they believe? Where are they likely to take this country? Listen to what they say, but more importantly, watch what they do. Because actions always speak louder than words. What kind of people have they surrounded themselves with, past, and continue to surround themselves with? My dad used to have a favorite saying. He had many of them, but he used to tell me, "You show me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are." And I might add, don't put a whole lot of credence in what you hear on the major news cable networks or in the major print publications. And I'm not going to take the time to name them all. There are so many of them out there. Because these people in the media, most of them, have a definite agenda. And their agenda is to remake you in the image of the world. It is important that the people we send into elective office reflect our values. The future of our children and our grandchildren are very dependent on it. Let's set the path straight. Let's give them an opportunity to enjoy the blessings of liberty and freedom the same way we have enjoyed them, the same way our parents have enjoyed them, our grandparents, and generations of Americans going back 235 years. We can do nothing less. We owe it to our posterity to pass on to them a nation that is more free, with more liberty, and more prosperous than the ones we inherited. And so once again I say to you, take the time to investigate, take the time to get involved in the political process. There are so many well-intentioned Americans that frankly don't understand the philosophical battle that has taken place in America and in all of humanity that matter. Well, that's about all I have to say right now. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. If this message has been a blessing to you, well then pass it on to your family, pass it on to your friends. And always, may God bless you, and may He always continue to bless these great United States of America. Thank you.